What if the moment you've dreamed of your whole life is also the moment that could destroy everything? Rachel Carter stood behind the curtain, heart pounding like a drum in her chest, her palms slick with sweat. The roaring crowd in Harvard's historic Tercentenary Theater was unlike anything she'd ever faced. Thousands of eyes, thousands of expectations, all focused on her, waiting for the words she'd rehearsed 1,000 times. The weight of the moment pressed down on her like a tidal wave. The speech she was about to deliver wasn't just a graduation address, it was a confession, a truth she'd carried alone for years, hidden beneath layers of polished ambition and carefully crafted smiles. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She had once written in a journal, words she now whispered silently to herself as if calling on some unseen strength. The stage manager's nod was the only signal she needed. Taking a deep breath, Rachel stepped forward, the applause crashing over her like a wave. Her voice trembled at first, but she pushed through, the first sentences flowing out like any typical commencement speech. She spoke of hope, dreams, the privilege of learning at one of the world's most prestigious institutions. But then, halfway through, her tone shifted. The polished words gave way to raw honesty. She told the crowd about her small town in Oklahoma, where the sky stretched wide but hope often felt just out of reach. She revealed the fractured family she came from, her father, a strict military veteran whose love was as hard as the steel of his medals, her mother, quiet and distant, weighed down by her own battles, her older brother Kyle, whose demons had dragged their family into darkness. She spoke of nights spent wondering if she'd ever be enough, if she could escape the shadows of her past. Gasps rippled through the audience as Rachel peeled back the layers of her carefully constructed life. She recounted the day she received her Harvard acceptance letter on the same morning Kyle was arrested for drug possession, a cruel twist that fractured their already fragile family. She described the loneliness of arriving on campus with no money, no friends, just a scholarship and a burning fear of failure. Her voice faltered as she confessed the exhaustion that drove her to collapse one cold winter night, the overwhelming pressure threatening to consume her. But she didn't stop there. Rachel spoke of hope, the professors who saw beyond her facade, the friends who offered kindness when she least expected it, the love she found in unexpected places. She shared how those moments of light kept her moving forward even when the darkness seemed endless. Tears glistened in the eyes of many in the crowd, some nodding in silent recognition of battles fought in their own lives. Rachel's words were more than a speech, they were a lifeline. When she finally closed with the declaration that the hardest truth to tell was one's own, but also the one that set a person free, the auditorium erupted. Standing ovations echoed off the walls, applause pounding like thunder. Rachel's knees nearly buckled beneath her, but the fierce joy in that moment was unlike anything she had ever known. Later, as she exited the stage, she spotted her mother wiping away tears, Leah, her closest friend, beaming with pride, and James, the law student who had quietly stood by her side throughout her journey. Her father remained absent, a shadow she hadn't yet confronted. What came next was uncertain, but Rachel knew one thing for sure. This speech was only the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for everyone who heard her story. What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Would you find the strength to stand again? Rachel did. And now, she was ready to show the world how. Rachel Carter grew up in a town where everyone knew your name but not your story. The kind of place where the streets were lined with aging pickup trucks, and the sky stretched wide and endless, a bright blue canvas that somehow felt more like a cage than a promise. From the outside, her life looked normal enough, a quiet childhood, good grades, friends, but beneath the surface, there were cracks no one ever talked about. Her father, a military veteran hardened by years of service, ruled the household with an iron fist. His love was never spoken but enforced through strict discipline and cold expectations. Rachel learned early that showing weakness invited silence or worse, disappointment. Her mother was a shadow in their home, quiet and withdrawn, weighed down by grief and her own untold burdens. She moved through the house like a ghost, her presence more felt than heard. Rachel's older brother, Kyle, was the family's secret, a boy who once had spark but slowly drowned in choices that broke their family apart. Kyle's early promise faded under the weight of addiction and poor decisions. Watching him slip away carved a hollow ache in Rachel's chest, one she bottled up because no one else seemed to have the words to fix it. School was her sanctuary, the only place where she could breathe beyond the suffocating walls of home. She was the first in her family to show any real academic promise, winning science fairs and earning respect from teachers. Yet, even in school, she felt the sting of being different. Most of her classmates were from families like hers, hardworking but struggling, but Rachel dreamed bigger. She wanted to escape the cycle she'd been born into. With each book she devoured, each late night studying by the flicker of a worn lamp, her hunger for something beyond small-town limits grew. Still, it was a lonely hunger. She learned to keep her dreams quiet, knowing that ambition could be mistaken for betrayal in a town where staying put was the safest path. Her best friend Sarah was one of the few who saw the real Rachel, the girl who stayed up late talking about college and futures far away. Sarah came from a similar background, but she was content with the familiar, the known. Their friendship was a lifeline but also a reminder of what Rachel might leave behind. At home, the tension simmered like an undercurrent. Arguments between her parents were rare but explosive when they happened. Rachel often found herself caught in the middle, a silent witness to the unraveling of the family she desperately wanted to hold together. Kyle's troubles made everything worse. The boy who once promised so much now spent nights in bars and days skipping school, his presence a shadow Rachel could neither ignore nor fix. When Kyle was arrested for drug possession, the family fractured in ways that would take years to mend. Rachel was 16 and terrified. That day, her world tilted. She held her father's cold gaze as he shouted about betrayal and disappointment. The house felt colder, emptier. And yet, amid the chaos, something inside Rachel hardened. She made a quiet vow, she would not end up like Kyle. She would be better. That promise fueled every late-night study session, every scholarship application she sent out, and every secret dream she nursed alone. Applying to Harvard was the boldest act of defiance she had ever committed. She knew her father would never approve, but she sent in her application anyway, her fingers trembling as she clicked submit. When the acceptance letter arrived, the joy was bittersweet. Kyle was in court that day. The same mail that held her future also carried the weight of her family's collapse. Leaving home to attend Harvard was both a relief and a torment. She packed her bags with a mixture of hope and fear, the silence of her mother's goodbye haunting her more than words ever could. Arriving on campus was like stepping into another world. Harvard was everything she had dreamed of and more, historic buildings, brilliant minds, endless opportunities, but it also magnified her insecurities. The halls echoed with accents and confidence she didn't recognize, and the easy wealth of many classmates made her feel like an outsider. Rachel worked hard to fit in, hiding her small-town roots behind carefully chosen words and polished smiles. She found solace in Leah, a wealthy New Yorker whose confidence was infectious. Leah's friendship was a bridge to this new life, but also a reminder of how far Rachel still had to go. Balancing classes, part-time jobs, and the loneliness that gnawed at her became a daily battle. Then, news from home shattered her fragile equilibrium. Her mother was hospitalized unexpectedly, and Rachel couldn't afford to fly back. Torn between guilt and responsibility, she worked nights in a campus cafe, pushing herself to exhaustion. Leah suspected something was wrong, but Rachel kept her distance, afraid to reveal her vulnerabilities. James, a law student with quiet strength, entered her life during this turbulent time. His support was steady, but Rachel resisted leaning on him, fearful of becoming dependent. The pressure mounted until one night, Rachel collapsed in class, drained and overwhelmed. James carried her to the hospital, where the memories she had tried to bury rose like ghosts, the image of Kyle overdosing years ago, the helplessness she vowed never to repeat. That moment marked a turning point. Rachel began to accept help, to share pieces of her story with those she trusted. Encouraged by James and Leah, she entered a Harvard writing competition, pouring her heart into an essay about her journey. Winning the contest brought new challenges, exposure and scrutiny, but also a chance to reclaim her voice. As graduation approached and the invitation to deliver the commencement speech arrived, Rachel faced her greatest dilemma: should she reveal the truth that had defined her or craft a safer, sanitized version of success? Threats and rumors swirled after a classmate leaked her essay draft, and James's offer to move to London added to her uncertainty. A visit to Kyle in prison became the catalyst for her decision. His words, raw and desperate, pushed Rachel to embrace her truth. She decided to speak from the heart, no matter the cost. Standing backstage on graduation day, memories flooded her, her family's struggles, moments of triumph, the love and pain intertwined in every step of her journey. When she began her speech, the polished rhetoric soon gave way to a raw confession that stunned the audience. She spoke openly about her battle with despair, her near collapse, and the power of kindness that kept her alive. The auditorium was silent, the weight of her words settling in like a tangible presence. Then, applause erupted, thunderous and filled with tears. Rachel's speech went viral, resonating far beyond the walls of Harvard. Messages poured in from people who saw themselves in her story, finding hope in her courage. Returning home, Rachel confronted the ghosts of her past with new strength. Her father's unexpected note of pride opened a door to healing, and reconnecting with her community fueled her desire to give back. Together with James and Leah, she founded a non-profit to support students like her, those caught between worlds, struggling to find their voice. Rachel's journey came full circle when she was invited back to Harvard as a guest of honor. The presence of her family, friends, and even her father in the audience was a testament to the power of truth and love. In her final speech, she shared the lesson she had learned: life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. Through heartbreak and hope, struggle and triumph, Rachel Carter's story became a beacon, reminding us all that our hardest truths can also be our greatest strengths. Rachel arrived on Harvard's campus under a heavy sky, the towering red brick buildings casting long shadows over the cobblestone paths as if warning her she had stepped into a world far beyond her reach. The sprawling grounds buzzed with conversations in countless accents, students laughing confidently with inherited privilege that seemed as natural as breathing. For a girl raised in a town where ambition was often mistaken for arrogance, Harvard felt both like a dream come true and a trap waiting to close around her. She clutched her thin suitcase tightly, each step echoing the doubts pounding in her mind. The lecture halls were grander than any classroom back home, the professors renowned, their reputations whispered with reverence. But alongside the excitement, Rachel felt invisible, like an intruder who didn't belong. She kept her origins carefully hidden, a secret she feared might expose her as a fraud. She found a small, sparsely furnished dorm room that barely resembled a home, but it was hers for now, a fragile foothold in this new world. Leah was the first to reach out. A confident, sharp-witted New Yorker, Leah lived in the dorm across the hall, her designer clothes and easy charm a stark contrast to Rachel's worn jeans and guarded demeanor. At first, Rachel resented Leah's effortless grace, but over time, Leah's warmth chipped away at her walls. Leah invited Rachel to join study groups, campus events, and dinners with friends. Gradually, Rachel allowed herself to breathe and hope that maybe, just maybe, she could belong here. But the pressure was relentless. Classes were intense, the competition fierce. Many of her peers came from families who had sent generations to Ivy League schools, their resumes polished from birth. Rachel fought to keep up, swallowing her pride as she juggled part-time jobs to cover expenses her scholarship didn't fully meet. Nights stretched long with textbooks and term papers while her dorm mates partied or networked effortlessly. The weight of her secret, that she came from a broken family and scraped together funds for tuition, pressed down on her. She feared rejection if the truth surfaced. But nothing shook her world more than the phone call she received one rainy afternoon. Her mother had been admitted to the hospital, no details, just a whispered urgency that sliced through Rachel's fragile calm. The thought of flying home, the cost, and the impossible guilt weighed heavily. She stayed, working double shifts at the campus cafe, stealing moments to study between serving coffee and wiping down counters. Leah noticed the change, the dark circles under Rachel's eyes, the moments when she seemed lost in thought. "You're not alone," Leah said gently one evening, placing a hand on Rachel's shoulder. But Rachel shook her head, clinging to the belief that she had to carry this burden alone. Then James entered her life. Quiet, thoughtful, with an easy smile that didn't come with expectations or judgment. James was a law student, brilliant and compassionate, the kind of person who noticed the small things. He offered help without asking, checking in on her after long days, making sure she ate, rested, survived. Rachel resisted at first, afraid to lean on anyone. She was used to being the strong one, the fixer, the survivor. But slowly, James became a steady presence, a lifeline in the storm. The strain finally broke her one bitter winter night. Exhausted beyond words, Rachel collapsed during a lecture. James caught her before she hit the ground, his arms firm and gentle. At the hospital, surrounded by the sterile white walls and beeping machines, memories she had buried deep flooded back. The image of Kyle, her brother, overdosing years ago, the helplessness she swore never to feel again. Tears she had held back for so long spilled freely. James stayed by her side, silent but unwavering. That moment became a turning point. Rachel realized she didn't have to face everything alone. Encouraged by Leah and James, she began to write. Her words poured out raw and unfiltered, a stark contrast to the polished veneer she wore every day. The Harvard writing competition became a beacon, a chance to reclaim her story on her own terms. Winning the contest brought both relief and fear. Suddenly, her story was no longer a secret. A classmate leaked her essay draft, sparking rumors and online threats that rattled her to the core. The weight of exposure threatened to crush her. When James received an offer for a prestigious job in London and invited Rachel to come, she was torn. The allure of escape tempted her, but her heart was tied to the truth she still had to face. Visiting Kyle in prison after years of silence was one of the hardest things Rachel ever did. Their reunion was raw and painful. Kyle was broken but desperate for redemption. "Say what you need to say," he urged her. "Don't make my mistake and stay silent." His words echoed long after she left. Armed with renewed courage, Rachel committed to delivering a commencement speech unlike any other, a speech that would lay bare her struggles, her failures, and her triumphs. On graduation day, the air was thick with anticipation and nerves. Backstage, Rachel closed her eyes and let memories wash over her, the harsh words from her father, the loneliness of small-town nights, the kindness of strangers who believed in her. When she stepped onto the stage, her voice was steady at first, delivering the usual platitudes about perseverance and dreams. But then the mask slipped. Rachel told the truth. She spoke of near despair, of nights when giving up seemed easier than trying. She told of the professor whose simple act of kindness saved her from the edge, of the friends who stood by her when the world seemed against her. The auditorium fell silent, the weight of her words sinking into every corner. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, tear-streaked faces, hands clapped until they ached. Her speech spread like wildfire across social media, reaching beyond Harvard's walls to touch lives everywhere. Messages poured in, strangers who saw themselves in her story, who found hope in her courage. Returning home was a journey fraught with emotion. The once familiar streets felt different, but Rachel saw them anew. Her father's unexpected note, a simple line of pride and apology, opened a door she hadn't dared knock on before. Rebuilding bridges became her new mission. With James and Leah, Rachel founded a nonprofit aimed at supporting students from backgrounds like hers, a place to nurture voices too often silenced. Years later, standing again on Harvard's stage, this time as a guest of honor, Rachel's heart swelled with the fullness of her journey. Surrounded by loved ones, including the father who had once seemed unreachable, she spoke of love, resilience, and the power of truth. Her final words resonated far beyond the ceremony: life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. Rachel's story became a beacon, a reminder that the hardest paths often lead to the brightest destinations, and that sharing our truths can set us free. Rachel's life at Harvard was a constant balancing act between overwhelming pressure and fleeting moments of hope. Each day brought new challenges, but also unexpected discoveries that shaped her journey in ways she never imagined. The campus, with its ivy-covered walls and centuries-old traditions, was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Rachel found herself wandering the vast library stacks late at night, searching for more than just research materials. She was looking for a place where she belonged. The contrast between her small Oklahoma hometown and Harvard's elite world was stark. In Oklahoma, she had been one of many struggling to escape a cycle of hardship. Here, surrounded by brilliant minds and wealth, she sometimes felt invisible. Yet, this very feeling fueled her determination. She threw herself into her studies, determined to prove she deserved to be here. Professors noticed her tenacity, and slowly, she earned their respect. But it wasn't just academic challenges that tested Rachel, it was the emotional weight she carried. The news from home remained a heavy shadow. Her mother's health was fragile, and with Kyle in prison, the family fractures ran deep. Rachel felt isolated, caught between worlds she didn't fully understand or control. Leah became her closest confidant, a constant source of laughter and support. Leah's easy confidence and sharp wit provided a counterbalance to Rachel's serious, often anxious nature. Their friendship deepened over shared late-night talks, coffee runs, and study sessions that stretched into dawn. Leah helped Rachel navigate social circles she never thought she'd enter, encouraging her to let down her guard and experience college beyond textbooks and exams. James was another pillar in Rachel's life. His calm presence was a steadying force amid the chaos. Though their relationship began as friendship, subtle moments revealed deeper feelings neither was ready to name. James listened without judgment, helped Rachel see the strength she often failed to recognize in herself. When Rachel collapsed one freezing winter night from sheer exhaustion, it was James who carried her to the hospital. That incident became a turning point, a wake-up call forcing Rachel to confront her limits and vulnerabilities. Hospital walls witnessed more than physical recovery, they held Rachel's tears, fears, and the beginning of a healing she had long denied herself. The writing competition was a beacon in this turbulent time. Pouring her heart into an essay about her journey, Rachel found catharsis and courage. Winning the contest brought recognition but also vulnerability. Her story was no longer private, and she faced backlash from some who questioned her motives or judged her past. Online threats and whispered rumors shook her confidence. Leah stood fiercely by her side, and James offered quiet strength. Together, they helped Rachel navigate the storm. When James received a prestigious job offer in London and invited Rachel to join him, it was a crossroads. The possibility of escape was tempting, but Rachel grappled with where her heart truly belonged. A visit to Kyle in prison offered unexpected clarity. Seeing her brother broken yet yearning for redemption sparked a fire within her. She realized that running away wouldn't heal her or her family. Rachel chose to face her past head-on, embracing the truth that had both burdened and strengthened her. As graduation approached, Rachel wrestled with the decision to reveal her story publicly. The invitation to deliver the commencement speech was both an honor and a daunting responsibility. Backstage, surrounded by nervous energy and the buzz of anticipation, Rachel closed her eyes and relived the journey, the sacrifices, the pain, the moments of unexpected kindness. Her voice began strong, delivering the expected words of hope and achievement. But then, she shifted, letting vulnerability seep through. She spoke openly about the struggle to belong, the fear of failure, and the power of resilience. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Tears flowed freely, applause erupted, and Rachel's speech quickly went viral. Messages flooded in from people across the country, many sharing their own struggles and thanking her for the courage to speak truth. Rachel's speech wasn't just about her, it was about everyone who had ever felt invisible, broken, or hopeless. Returning home after graduation was a profound experience. The familiar streets held different meanings now. Her father's unexpected note of pride opened a fragile door to reconciliation. Rachel embraced the messy, imperfect process of healing family wounds. Inspired by her journey, Rachel, Leah, and James founded a nonprofit dedicated to supporting students from challenging backgrounds. Their mission was to provide mentorship, scholarships, and a community where voices like Rachel's could thrive. Years later, invited back to Harvard as a guest of honor, Rachel stood once again on the stage that had transformed her life. Surrounded by family and friends, including the father who had once seemed unreachable, she shared her story anew. Her final words resonated deeply: "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." Rachel's story became a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of truth and the courage to keep moving forward no matter the odds. Rachel's Harvard experience deepened as the semesters rolled on, each day unveiling unexpected layers of challenge and growth. The initial awe of the campus gave way to a sharper awareness of the social and emotional divides that separated her from many peers. She realized that Harvard wasn't just a place of academic rigor, it was a crucible testing every part of her identity. Her classes demanded excellence, with professors who expected brilliance and critical thinking that stretched her to the limits. Yet the academic pressure was only one piece of her journey. Socially, Rachel faced the silent question of belonging. At networking events and study groups, she was often the only person who spoke without an accent shaped by privilege, without stories of family legacies or elite summer programs. Her small-town background made her cautious, she guarded her truth behind measured smiles and practiced phrases. Leah's friendship remained her anchor, a connection to someone who embraced her fully. Leah often challenged Rachel to step outside her comfort zone, inviting her to parties, lectures, and cultural events that Rachel might have otherwise skipped. Each invitation was a small rebellion against the fear that kept her isolated. Leah's encouragement helped Rachel find joy in new experiences, from late-night poetry readings to lively debates at the student union. Meanwhile, James continued to be a quiet source of strength. Their friendship deepened into something more subtle yet profound, a bond forged in shared struggles and mutual respect. James listened without judgment when Rachel shared her fears, her hopes, and her memories of a fractured family left behind. He never pushed her beyond what she was ready to give but remained a steady presence. The combination of Leah's exuberance and James's calm steadied Rachel in moments of doubt. Despite these supports, Rachel's heart ached with worry about her family back home. The news of her mother's declining health was a constant shadow. Kyle's situation worsened, visits to the prison revealed a brother increasingly isolated and desperate for change. Rachel grappled with guilt, torn between her ambitions and the responsibility she felt for the family she'd left behind. Her decision to stay at Harvard rather than return home for extended periods weighed heavily on her. Financial constraints made trips impossible, and Rachel feared that leaving might jeopardize her fragile footing at school. The loneliness was profound, often creeping in during quiet nights in her dorm room. It was in these moments that Rachel turned inward, wrestling with feelings of inadequacy and isolation. One evening, after a particularly grueling week of exams and hospital calls, Rachel sat by the Charles River, the city lights reflecting in the dark water. The breeze carried the distant sounds of laughter and music from a nearby dorm. She thought of Kyle, struggling in a cell miles away, and of her mother, fighting a battle Rachel couldn't reach. The weight of her two worlds pressed down until it felt unbearable. Tears came without warning, and Rachel let them fall, the first honest release she'd allowed herself in months. That night marked a turning point. Rachel reached out to the university's counseling center, seeking support she had long denied herself. The sessions were difficult at first, forcing her to confront painful memories and vulnerabilities. But slowly, the therapy opened spaces within her heart for healing and hope. She learned to forgive herself for the things she couldn't control and to accept the imperfect nature of her family. With renewed strength, Rachel began to write again, this time not just for competitions but for herself. Her essays captured the complexities of identity, loss, and resilience. One piece about navigating Harvard as a first-generation student gained attention on campus, sparking conversations about privilege and opportunity. Yet the path was never linear. A betrayal from a trusted classmate who shared private details of her essay without permission shook Rachel deeply. Rumors spread quickly, and Rachel faced cold stares and whispered doubts. The experience was a harsh lesson in vulnerability and trust. But Leah and James rallied around her, offering fierce loyalty and reassurance. Their unwavering support reminded Rachel that she was not alone. James's job offer in London added new tension. The possibility of moving across the ocean was both thrilling and terrifying. James invited Rachel to join him, promising new adventures and a chance to start fresh. Rachel wrestled with the decision, knowing that accepting meant leaving unfinished business at home and in her heart. The visit to Kyle in prison was raw and emotional. Seeing her brother behind bars, stripped of pride but yearning for forgiveness, brought years of pain to the surface. Kyle's plea for Rachel to be brave, to speak her truth, resonated deeply. His words were a catalyst, pushing Rachel to embrace the difficult parts of her story rather than hide them. When the commencement speech invitation arrived, Rachel knew it was her moment to shine and to heal. Backstage, surrounded by nervous graduates and proud families, she felt the full weight of her journey. Her voice trembled as she began, but as she spoke, a steady confidence emerged. She shared not just triumphs but failures, doubts, and moments of despair. Her speech peeled back the polished facade of success to reveal the real cost of dreams. The audience was captivated, moved to tears and applause. Rachel's words sparked a movement on social media, with thousands relating to her honesty and courage. Messages poured in from strangers who saw their own struggles reflected in her story. Rachel realized that her voice could be a source of hope and connection far beyond the walls of Harvard. Returning home, Rachel faced the past anew. Her father's tentative note of pride was a fragile bridge toward reconciliation. Rachel invested in healing her family, embracing the messy, painful process of rebuilding trust. Alongside Leah and James, she launched a nonprofit to support students from backgrounds like hers, those caught between worlds, seeking their place. Years later, standing once more on Harvard's stage as a guest of honor, Rachel's heart was full. Surrounded by family and friends, she shared the lessons learned, that resilience comes from vulnerability, and love, however complicated, will always light the way. Rachel's story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of truth, courage, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. Rachel's journey into her senior year at Harvard was marked by a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. The campus, once a sprawling labyrinth of intimidating prestige and alien social codes, now felt a bit more like home, yet the weight of expectations pressed heavily on her shoulders. She had come so far, yet the final stretch loomed dauntingly ahead. Her scholarship required maintaining a high GPA, and her part-time jobs, now too to cover rising expenses, drained her energy. Still, Rachel's resolve had hardened. She refused to let her past define her future. Each morning, she rose before dawn, carving out time to review notes and draft essays before classes began. But beneath this disciplined exterior, her mind often wandered to her mother's fragile health and her brother Kyle's uncertain fate. The persistent fear that she might lose them without having truly made peace was a silent ache. Leah remained her closest confidant, their friendship blossoming into a sisterhood forged in shared late nights and whispered secrets. Leah was the vibrant foil to Rachel's cautious nature, pulling her out of her shell to experience campus life's fullness, concerts, protests, art exhibits, and the bustling cafes where stories and dreams mingled. "You deserve more than just surviving, Rachel," Leah often reminded her, handing over a cup of coffee with a knowing smile. James, too, had grown from a steady friend into a quiet pillar of support. Their connection deepened without fanfare, built on mutual understanding and gentle encouragement. He never pressured Rachel for more than she was ready to give, but his presence was a balm when the world felt too overwhelming. The night Rachel collapsed from exhaustion in a crowded lecture hall marked a turning point. James caught her before she hit the floor, his grip firm but kind. In the emergency room, amidst the antiseptic smells and humming machines, Rachel allowed herself to break down for the first time in years. The walls bore witness to her tears and whispered fears, a stark contrast to the strong, composed figure she projected to the world. That vulnerable moment began a slow transformation. Rachel sought counseling through Harvard's mental health services, wrestling with the guilt and loneliness that had shadowed her since childhood. Therapy was hard but healing. She learned to accept that needing help was not weakness but strength. With this newfound self-compassion, Rachel began to reclaim her voice through writing. Her essays, once tightly controlled and polished for approval, became raw and authentic expressions of her journey. One poignant piece about the clash between her small-town roots and Harvard's elite culture garnered campus-wide attention. Invitations to speak at student forums and panels followed, though public speaking still sent tremors through her. The writing competition was another milestone. Rachel poured her heart into an essay titled, Between Two Worlds, detailing the struggles of bridging socioeconomic divides and finding identity amidst conflicting expectations. Winning the contest brought validation and fear. The sudden spotlight made her story vulnerable to judgment and misunderstanding. When a classmate leaked her essay draft, exposing private reflections, Rachel felt the sting of betrayal. Rumors circulated, some questioned her motives, others dismissed her as seeking attention. The experience was a harsh lesson in trust and resilience. Leah and James rallied around her fiercely, their support unwavering. "They don't know your story like we do," Leah said one night, pulling Rachel into a tight embrace. "Keep telling it, for you." The offer from James to move to London for a prestigious internship presented another crossroads. The idea of leaving behind the heartbreak and pressure in Boston was tempting, but Rachel hesitated. Her family's struggles were far from over, and her heart anchored her in a place where healing and confrontation were needed. The visit to Kyle in prison was a pivotal moment. Rachel hadn't seen him in years, and the stark reality of his confinement was sobering. Kyle, though broken, spoke of regret and hope. "Don't hide your truth," he urged. "Speak for those who can't." His words lingered, crystallizing Rachel's decision to face her fears head-on. When the opportunity to deliver the commencement speech arose, Rachel knew it was her chance to break the silence. Backstage, nerves gnawed at her, but she steeled herself, drawing strength from Leah's fierce encouragement and James's quiet confidence. Stepping onto the stage, Rachel's voice began steady and clear, recounting the familiar themes of perseverance and dreams. But as she spoke, the guard dropped. She shared raw truths, her mother's illness, her brother's incarceration, the nights she nearly gave up. The audience was captivated by the honesty and vulnerability she displayed. Tears flowed, applause thundered, and Rachel's speech became an anthem for resilience. Social media buzzed with admiration and gratitude from thousands touched by her story. Rachel realized that her voice had power not just for herself but for many who felt unseen. Returning home after graduation was both healing and challenging. The town that once felt limiting now felt familiar and full of possibility. Her father's tentative letter of pride opened a fragile path toward reconciliation. Rachel embraced the messy, painful process of rebuilding family bonds. With Leah and James, she launched a nonprofit dedicated to supporting first-generation students, creating a community where stories like hers were nurtured and celebrated. Years later, invited back to Harvard as a guest speaker, Rachel stood on the stage where her journey had transformed. Surrounded by loved ones, including the father she once feared lost to her past, she shared the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and truth. Her closing words echoed through the auditorium and beyond, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." Rachel's story became a beacon of hope, a testament to courage, authenticity, and the power of embracing one's truth. Rachel sat quietly in the University Counseling Center, the sterile walls and soft lighting offering a strange comfort amid the storm of emotions swirling inside her. It was her first session, and though nerves clenched her stomach, she knew this was a step she had to take. For years, Rachel had shouldered the burdens of her past silently: her mother's fragile health, her brother Kyle's incarceration, the weight of poverty, and the relentless pressure to succeed at Harvard. But the exhaustion was catching up, threatening to consume her. Her therapist, Dr. Green, listened patiently as Rachel began to unravel her story, fragmented memories of hardship and hope intertwined. Rachel spoke of Oklahoma's dusty streets where childhood dreams were often eclipsed by harsh realities, of a family fractured yet fiercely loving, and of the loneliness she felt navigating Harvard's elite halls. The sessions became a refuge, a space where Rachel could confront the fears and guilt she had buried deep. Gradually, she learned that vulnerability was not a weakness but a source of strength. Rachel began to understand that healing wasn't about erasing pain but weaving it into a story of resilience. Outside the counseling center, life continued with its relentless pace. Leah's vibrant energy remained a lifeline, pulling Rachel into moments of joy and normalcy. Together, they attended campus events, debated social issues, and shared laughter that felt like medicine. Leah's unwavering belief in Rachel's worth reminded her that she was more than her struggles. James, ever the steady presence, offered quiet support. Their friendship, built on trust and understanding, blossomed into something deeper yet unspoken. James's gentle encouragement helped Rachel navigate the blurred lines between fear and hope. When Rachel collapsed from exhaustion during a demanding week, it was James who caught her, his steady hands carrying her to safety. That night in the hospital was a turning point. Rachel confronted her limits and accepted that she couldn't do it all alone. The writing competition presented an opportunity for Rachel to channel her pain into purpose. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, laid bare the complexities of identity, belonging, and the courage to embrace one's truth. Winning the contest brought recognition but also exposed her to scrutiny and judgment. When a classmate leaked private parts of her essay, Rachel faced betrayal and cold whispers that tested her resolve. But Leah and James stood fiercely by her side, their loyalty a shield against the harshness. The challenge of choosing between staying at Harvard and joining James in London weighed heavily on Rachel. The idea of escape was tempting, but her heart remained tethered to the family she was still learning to forgive and support. A visit to Kyle in prison revealed a brother yearning for redemption, urging Rachel to speak her truth boldly. That visit crystallized her decision to face her fears rather than flee. When Rachel stepped onto the commencement stage, her voice trembled but grew strong. She shared not just triumphs but raw truths, the pain, the fears, and the hope that carried her through. The audience was silent, captivated by her courage. Applause erupted, and her speech quickly went viral, touching hearts far beyond Harvard. Returning home, Rachel embraced the messy, imperfect process of healing family wounds. Her father's tentative pride opened doors to reconciliation. With Leah and James, she founded a nonprofit supporting students like herself, creating a community where voices often unheard could thrive. Years later, back at Harvard as a guest of honor, Rachel stood surrounded by family and friends. Her final words resonated deeply: "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." Rachel's journey was a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of truth and the courage to keep moving forward no matter the odds. Rachel stared out at the autumn sky from her dorm window, the Harvard campus slowly shedding its leaves in hues of gold and crimson. The changing season mirrored the transformation she was undergoing, one that was as internal as it was external. Senior year had begun, and with it came a blend of excitement and the sobering reality that her time at Harvard was drawing to a close. The academic pressure intensified with thesis deadlines, final presentations, and the looming prospect of life after graduation. Rachel felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her chest, but this time, she was determined to face it head-on. Her days were a delicate balance of lectures, study groups, and late nights spent in the library's quiet corners. Yet, amidst the academic grind, Rachel found solace in moments that reminded her of the journey she had traveled. Leah's infectious laughter as they shared coffee breaks, James's reassuring presence during stressful times, and the small victories that came with each completed assignment. These moments were lifelines, anchoring her to the present and giving her strength for the challenges ahead. Rachel's relationship with Leah had grown deeper, evolving into a sisterhood that transcended the typical college friendship. Leah's unwavering support and bold encouragement pushed Rachel beyond her comfort zones. Together, they attended cultural events, protests, and poetry slams, experiences that enriched Rachel's perspective and ignited her passion for social justice. Leah's words often echoed in Rachel's mind, "You're not just surviving, Rachel. You're meant to thrive." James remained a steady force in Rachel's life. Their connection had blossomed quietly, built on mutual respect and unspoken understanding. He was the calm to her storm, offering comfort without pressure. The night Rachel collapsed from exhaustion, James was there, not just physically but emotionally, helping her confront the reality that she couldn't carry every burden alone. That moment in the hospital became a catalyst for change, prompting Rachel to seek therapy and embrace vulnerability. Therapy was a challenging journey. Rachel confronted long-held fears, guilt, and the deep wounds of her past. The counseling sessions were spaces of painful honesty and gradual healing. Rachel learned to forgive herself for the things beyond her control and to accept her imperfections. This newfound self-compassion infused her writing with authenticity and power. Her essays moved beyond academic expectations, becoming poignant narratives of identity, resilience, and hope. Winning the university's prestigious writing competition was both a triumph and a trial. Rachel's essay, Between Two Worlds, candidly depicted her struggles bridging socio-economic divides and finding her voice amid Harvard's elite culture. The recognition brought visibility but also scrutiny. When a classmate leaked private drafts, exposing Rachel to judgment and whispers, she felt the sting of betrayal. The experience tested her resolve but also reinforced the importance of her support system. Leah and James stood by her fiercely, reminding her that her story mattered and that she was not alone. Amid these personal battles, James's offer to take a prestigious internship in London introduced a new dilemma. The prospect of leaving Boston, and the pain tethering her there, was tempting. Yet, Rachel's heart anchored her to unfinished business, healing family wounds and finding peace with her past. A visit to Kyle in prison deepened her resolve. Seeing her brother broken yet hopeful was a sobering reminder of the stakes. Kyle's plea for Rachel to be brave and authentic resonated deeply, solidifying her decision to face her fears rather than escape. The opportunity to deliver the commencement speech was both an honor and a burden. Backstage, the cacophony of nervous graduates and proud families surrounded Rachel, but her mind was focused inward. Drawing strength from Leah's fierce encouragement and James's quiet confidence, Rachel stepped onto the stage with a trembling voice that soon steadied. She began with the familiar themes of perseverance and achievement but gradually peeled back the polished veneer to reveal raw truths, the pain, the doubts, and the resilience that defined her journey. The audience was captivated, hanging on every word. Applause thundered, tears flowed, and Rachel's speech quickly went viral, touching hearts far beyond Harvard. Returning home after graduation was a poignant experience. The small town that once seemed limiting now held new meanings. Her father's tentative letter expressing pride was a fragile but significant step toward reconciliation. Rachel embraced the messy, imperfect process of healing family bonds. Together with Leah and James, she launched a nonprofit dedicated to supporting first-generation students, creating a community where voices like hers could thrive and inspire. Years later, Rachel stood again on Harvard's stage, this time as a guest of honor. Surrounded by family, friends, and those she had helped along the way, she shared the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and authenticity. Her final words echoed through the auditorium, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." Rachel's journey, marked by struggle, courage, and transformation, became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of truth and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. As Rachel looked out over the sea of faces, she knew her story was no longer just her own. It belonged to every person who had ever felt unseen, unheard, or alone. And in that moment, she understood that speaking her truth had not only changed her life, it had the power to change the world. Rachel woke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through her dorm window, the Harvard campus still quiet beneath a sky painted in shades of pink and orange. Senior year was officially underway, and with it came a swirl of emotions, anticipation, excitement, but also an undercurrent of anxiety. The weight of the future pressed against her chest, but she was determined to face it with the same resilience that had carried her this far. Her days quickly filled with lectures, seminars, and long hours at the library, each assignment a stepping stone toward her dreams. Yet, amid the rigorous academic demands, Rachel carved out moments of connection, brief coffee breaks with Leah, whose laughter brought light to even the darkest days, and quiet conversations with James, whose steady presence grounded her in a world that often felt overwhelming. Leah's unwavering encouragement pushed Rachel beyond her comfort zones, inviting her to experience campus life's vibrant tapestry, from poetry slams to social justice rallies, reminding her that life was about more than survival, it was about thriving. James, calm and supportive, helped Rachel navigate the blurred lines between fear and hope. When exhaustion finally overwhelmed her one evening, leading to a collapse in a crowded lecture hall, it was James who caught her, his care extending beyond the physical to the emotional. That night in the hospital marked a turning point. Rachel began therapy, confronting the pain and guilt she had long buried. The sessions were challenging, forcing her to face vulnerabilities she had avoided for years, but slowly, healing took root. Writing became her sanctuary, her essays evolving into powerful narratives that gave voice to her struggles and triumphs. Winning a prestigious campus writing competition for her piece, Between Two Worlds, brought both validation and vulnerability. A classmate's betrayal, leaking private parts of her essay, tested Rachel's courage, but Leah and James stood by her fiercely, their loyalty a beacon in the storm. The offer of a London internship from James introduced a complex choice, the allure of a fresh start versus the pull of unfinished family healing. A prison visit with Kyle, her brother, deepened her resolve to face her fears rather than flee. Kyle's plea for bravery and honesty resonated deeply. When Rachel stepped onto the commencement stage, her voice initially trembled but soon rang clear and strong. She shared not only her victories but her raw truths. The pain, the doubts, and the resilience that defined her journey. The audience was moved, applause thundered, and her speech sparked a viral wave of admiration and connection far beyond Harvard. Returning home was a profound chapter. Her father's tentative letter of pride opened fragile paths toward reconciliation. With Leah and James, Rachel launched a nonprofit supporting first-generation students, creating a community where voices like hers could flourish. Years later, as a guest of honor at Harvard, Rachel's closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," resonated deeply, a testament to the power of truth, courage, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. Rachel's story, once a solitary struggle, had blossomed into a beacon of hope for countless others seeking their place in the world. Rachel sat quietly in her dorm room, the soft hum of Harvard's campus life drifting through the open window. The approaching end of her senior year stirred a mix of excitement and unease within her. Every step forward felt heavy with the weight of expectation, not just from professors or peers, but from herself. She had come so far, yet the challenges ahead seemed daunting. The thesis deadlines loomed, and the future beyond the university was an intimidating unknown. Still, beneath the anxiety, a quiet determination burned. Rachel was no longer the uncertain girl who had arrived years ago from a small town in Oklahoma. She had grown, her struggles shaping a resilience that now defined her. Her mornings began early, with careful routines designed to keep her focused. She juggled classes, part-time jobs, and hours spent in the library. Yet amid the relentless pace, Rachel found moments of solace with Leah, whose infectious optimism and fierce loyalty reminded her that life was more than endless work. Leah pulled her into campus protests, art shows, and poetry readings, experiences that opened Rachel's eyes to the vibrant tapestry of perspectives and voices around her. Leah's words echoed in Rachel's mind, "You're not just surviving here. You're meant to thrive. James was a constant presence, steady and patient. Their friendship had deepened into something tender and unspoken, a sanctuary amid the chaos. He supported Rachel's ambitions without pressure, offering comfort when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. The night Rachel collapsed in the lecture hall marked a turning point, forcing her to confront the reality that she couldn't do everything alone. The hospital visit was a moment of vulnerability she hadn't allowed herself before, a moment that began her journey toward healing. Therapy sessions were challenging. Rachel wrestled with buried fears, guilt, and the shadows of her past. But slowly, she learned to embrace her vulnerability as strength. Her writing blossomed into a powerful outlet, her essays revealing a raw honesty that resonated deeply. Winning the campus writing competition with her piece, Between Two Worlds, brought recognition, but also exposed her to scrutiny when a classmate leaked parts of her essay. The betrayal stung, but Leah and James stood fiercely by her side, their support unwavering. James's internship offer in London introduced a dilemma. The prospect of escape was tempting, but Rachel's heart was tied to her family and the work of healing those fractured bonds. A visit to Kyle in prison deepened her resolve. Seeing her brother's remorse and hope reminded her of the stakes. Kyle urged Rachel to be brave and authentic, words that stayed with her. When Rachel took the stage to deliver the commencement speech, her voice was initially shaky, but she found strength in the shared experience of the audience. She spoke not just of success, but of struggle and resilience, the truths often hidden behind polished achievements. Her honesty captivated listeners, earning thunderous applause and sparking widespread attention. Returning home after graduation was a mix of joy and pain. Rachel's father's tentative letter of pride marked the beginning of fragile reconciliation. With Leah and James, she founded a nonprofit supporting first-generation students, building a community where stories like hers could inspire and uplift. Years later, as a guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel's closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed through the auditorium. Her journey, once marked by hardship and fear, had transformed into a beacon of hope, proving the power of truth, courage, and love to change lives. Rachel's senior year at Harvard was a whirlwind of academic challenges, emotional growth, and deepening relationships. The crisp autumn air brought a renewed energy to campus, but also a growing awareness that this chapter of her life was nearing its end. Every day was a balancing act. Attending demanding classes, juggling part-time jobs to support her family, and carving out precious moments with Leah and James, whose unwavering support had become her lifeline. The pressures of scholarship requirements and looming career decisions often threatened to overwhelm her, yet Rachel's determination never wavered. Her past, marked by family struggles, financial hardship, and personal loss, had shaped her resilience and fueled her ambition to succeed not just for herself but for those she loved. Leah's friendship was a vibrant counterpoint to the intensity of Rachel's academic world. Leah's infectious enthusiasm drew Rachel into the heart of campus life, social events, rallies, poetry readings, opening new perspectives and kindling a passion for social justice. Leah's belief in Rachel's potential was a constant reminder that she deserved joy and fulfillment beyond survival. "You're more than what you've been through," Leah often said, "and you're stronger than you realize." James remained a steady presence, his quiet encouragement a balm during moments of self-doubt. Their friendship blossomed gently into something deeper, built on trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect. When Rachel collapsed from exhaustion one hectic afternoon, it was James who caught her, his care extending beyond physical support to emotional understanding. That night in the hospital was a turning point, compelling Rachel to confront her limits and seek help through therapy. The counseling sessions were difficult but transformative, allowing Rachel to unpack years of guilt, fear, and loneliness. She learned to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength, and her writing began to reflect this newfound honesty and depth. Winning the campus writing competition with her essay, Between Two Worlds, was a milestone that brought both recognition and unexpected challenges. The piece candidly explored the complexities of navigating socioeconomic divides and cultural identity, resonating with many but also exposing Rachel to judgment when a classmate leaked private parts of her work. The betrayal was painful, yet Leah and James stood fiercely by her side, their loyalty a shield against harsh whispers and doubts. This ordeal strengthened Rachel's resolve to speak her truth and advocate for others facing similar struggles. The offer of a prestigious internship in London from James presented a tempting escape from the pressures of Boston and the unresolved issues tethering her home. Yet Rachel's heart remained with her family, especially after a poignant visit to her brother Kyle in prison. Kyle's remorse and hope for redemption underscored the importance of facing painful truths rather than running from them. His encouragement to be brave and authentic stayed with Rachel, reinforcing her commitment to healing and growth. When Rachel delivered the commencement speech, her voice carried the weight of lived experience. She spoke not only of achievements but of the challenges that shaped her, her family's hardships, the nights of doubt, and the resilience that carried her forward. The audience was moved by her candor and strength, and the speech quickly gained national attention, inspiring countless others. Returning home after graduation was a journey of reconciliation and renewal. Rachel's father's tentative letter expressing pride was a fragile but meaningful step toward mending their fractured relationship. With Leah and James, Rachel launched a nonprofit aimed at supporting first-generation students, creating a community where voices like hers could be heard and empowered. Years later, standing again on Harvard's stage as a guest speaker, Rachel reflected on her journey. Surrounded by loved ones, she shared the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and authenticity. Her closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," resonated deeply, a testament to the power of truth, courage, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. Rachel's story, once marked by struggle and fear, had blossomed into a beacon of hope for many seeking their own paths to healing and success. Rachel stood at the edge of Harvard Yard, the crisp spring air swirling around her as she contemplated the path that had led her here and the future that awaited. The past few years had been a whirlwind, a relentless tide of challenges and growth that had transformed her in ways she was still discovering. She remembered the uncertainty of her freshman year, the weight of her family's struggles back home in Oklahoma, and the isolation she'd felt navigating a world so different from anything she'd known. Yet, through every setback and triumph, she had found strength in unexpected places, within herself, in the steadfast support of Leah and James, and in the stories she dared to share. Rachel's relationship with Leah had become a cornerstone of her college experience. Leah's fearless spirit and unwavering belief in Rachel's potential pulled her beyond the confines of her comfort zone. Together, they explored the vibrant tapestry of campus life. From late-night debates in the dining hall to impassioned protests advocating for social justice. Leah challenged Rachel to see her own worth and to embrace the fullness of her identity, encouraging her to tell her story not just for herself but for those whose voices remained unheard. "Your truth matters," Leah often reminded her, "and it has the power to change the world." James, too, had become an integral part of Rachel's journey. Their friendship had quietly deepened into a bond marked by mutual respect and unspoken affection. James's steady presence was a refuge in moments of doubt, his quiet encouragement a reminder that Rachel didn't have to carry her burdens alone. When exhaustion finally overtook her during a demanding semester, it was James who caught her, both literally and figuratively, helping her realize that seeking help was not a sign of weakness but an act of courage. That night in the hospital was a turning point, prompting Rachel to begin therapy and embark on the difficult but healing process of confronting her past. Therapy sessions were challenging, forcing Rachel to face buried fears and unresolved pain. Yet, with each session, she learned to weave her vulnerabilities into a tapestry of resilience. Her writing, once a private refuge, blossomed into a powerful tool for connection and advocacy. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, won a prestigious campus writing competition, shining a light on the complexities of identity, belonging, and perseverance. However, the victory was bittersweet. A classmate's betrayal, leaking private drafts of her essay, exposed Rachel to judgment and scrutiny, testing her resolve. But Leah and James stood fiercely by her side, their loyalty a shield against the harsh whispers and doubts. The offer of a coveted internship in London from James introduced a poignant dilemma. The chance to start anew was tempting, yet Rachel's heart remained tethered to the family she was still learning to forgive and support. A visit to Kyle in prison crystallized her decision. Seeing her brother's remorse and hope rekindled her own commitment to bravery and authenticity. Kyle urged her to speak her truth boldly, reminding her that healing began with honesty. When Rachel stepped onto the commencement stage, her voice was steady, carrying the weight of her journey. She shared not just the polished achievements but the raw truths, the fears, the struggles, and the resilience that defined her path. The audience was captivated, their silence a testament to the power of her words. Applause erupted, and her speech quickly went viral, inspiring countless others beyond the Harvard community. Returning home after graduation was a profound chapter of reconciliation. Rachel's father's tentative letter expressing pride marked the fragile beginnings of healing fractured bonds. With Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit supporting first-generation students, creating a community where voices like hers could thrive and inspire. Years later, standing once more on Harvard's stage as a guest of honor, Rachel reflected on her journey. Surrounded by loved ones, she shared the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and authenticity. Her final words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," resonated deeply, a testament to the power of truth and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. Rachel's story, born from struggle and fear, had blossomed into a beacon of hope, illuminating paths for those seeking courage to embrace their own truths and forge their futures. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Rachel's senior year at Harvard unfolded with a mix of intense challenges and quiet victories that shaped her into a woman of remarkable strength. Each morning, she awoke to the distant sounds of the bustling campus, the early spring breeze carrying a promise of new beginnings even as the weight of unfinished business pressed on her shoulders. The relentless academic pressure was accompanied by a deeper, more personal journey, a quest to reconcile her past, embrace her identity, and forge a future on her own terms. Her relationship with Leah grew stronger, their bond a source of joy and unwavering support. Leah's fearless optimism inspired Rachel to step beyond her self-imposed boundaries and engage fully with the world around her, from spirited debates on social justice to late-night poetry readings that stirred her soul. Leah often reminded her, "You don't just survive, you shine." James's quiet presence was a steady anchor amid the storm. Their friendship deepened into a tender connection built on trust and shared vulnerability. When exhaustion led Rachel to collapse one afternoon, it was James who helped her realize the necessity of seeking help. The hospital visit became a turning point, prompting Rachel to begin therapy and confront long-buried fears. The counseling sessions were challenging, but they also opened pathways to healing and self-acceptance. Rachel's writing flourished, evolving into a powerful voice that resonated within and beyond Harvard. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, earned acclaim, capturing the complexities of identity and resilience. Yet, a breach of trust when a classmate leaked parts of her essay exposed her to harsh judgment, testing her strength. Leah and James stood fiercely by her, their loyalty a protective shield. An opportunity to intern in London presented a tempting escape, but Rachel's heart remained tethered to family and the unfinished work of healing. A prison visit with her brother Kyle deepened her resolve to face her fears rather than flee. Kyle's plea for courage and honesty echoed in her mind as she prepared to address her graduating class. On commencement day, Rachel's speech was a raw, honest testament to her journey. She spoke of struggle and triumph, of fear and hope, moving her audience to silence and then applause that echoed beyond the campus. Her words resonated widely, inspiring others to embrace their own truths. Returning home, Rachel faced the delicate process of mending fractured family ties. Her father's tentative letter of pride marked a new beginning. Together with Leah and James, Rachel launched a nonprofit to support first-generation students, building a community of empowerment and hope. Years later, as a guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel reflected on her path. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," stood as a testament to resilience and the transformative power of authenticity. Rachel's story had become a beacon for many, illuminating the courage it takes to speak one's truth and the love that guides us through life's most daunting challenges. Rachel stood backstage at Sanders Theatre, the grand hall humming with the quiet anticipation of hundreds of students, faculty, and guests gathered for Harvard's commencement. The weight of the moment pressed upon her, not as a burden, but as a testament to the long, winding road she had traveled to get here. From the girl who had arrived on campus unsure if she belonged, grappling with the shadows of a fractured family and the weight of expectation, to the woman poised to address one of the most prestigious academic audiences in the country, Rachel felt a surge of emotion she could barely contain. Her speech was more than words. It was a declaration of survival, resilience, and hope. The past 4 years had shaped her in ways she never imagined. The challenges of navigating a world so different from her small-town Oklahoma roots, the sleepless nights spent balancing academics and part-time jobs, the moments of doubt when the future seemed uncertain, all had forged a strength she now carried with quiet pride. Her friendships with Leah and James had been pillars of support. Leah's unwavering belief in Rachel's potential had pulled her from the shadows of insecurity, while James's steady presence had given her the courage to confront her vulnerabilities. Together, they had weathered betrayals, heartbreaks, and the relentless pressure of Harvard's demanding environment. The journey had not been easy. A collapse from exhaustion had forced Rachel to confront the reality of her limits and seek therapy, a step that unlocked a new chapter of healing. Writing became her refuge, a way to give voice to the complexities of her identity and experiences. Her award-winning essay, Between Two Worlds, spoke to the heart of the immigrant and first-generation student experience, resonating deeply with audiences but also exposing her to unexpected scrutiny when a classmate leaked parts of her work. The betrayal stung, but the loyalty of Leah and James fortified her resolve. When James offered her an internship opportunity in London, Rachel faced a difficult choice between escape and confrontation. A visit to her brother Kyle in prison crystallized her decision to stay and face her past. Kyle's plea for honesty and bravery echoed in her mind as she crafted her commencement speech, a message not only of achievement but of authenticity. As Rachel stepped onto the stage, the lights warm against her skin and the expectant silence enveloping the room, she took a deep breath. Her voice, steady and clear, carried her story, a narrative woven with struggle, hope, and the unyielding power of love. The audience listened, spellbound, as Rachel shared the raw truths behind her polished successes, illuminating the hidden battles many face. Applause thundered through the hall, a powerful affirmation of her journey. In the weeks that followed, Rachel's speech went viral, touching lives far beyond Harvard's gates. Returning home, she embarked on a path of reconciliation with her family, her father's tentative letter of pride a fragile but meaningful step toward healing. With Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit dedicated to supporting first-generation students, fostering a community where stories like hers could inspire and uplift. Years later, invited back to Harvard as a guest speaker, Rachel reflected on the enduring lessons of resilience, love, and authenticity that had guided her. Her closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed through the auditorium, a beacon of hope for all who heard them. Rachel's journey, once marked by fear and uncertainty, had blossomed into a testament to the transformative power of truth and the human spirit's capacity to overcome. Rachel's journey to the commencement stage had been anything but straightforward. As she looked back on the years at Harvard, the memories flooded in, each one a testament to her growth, resilience, and the power of human connection. The challenges she faced were many: the pressure of academic excellence, the weight of being a first-generation student far from home, and the tangled web of family struggles that lingered in her heart. Yet, through it all, Rachel found strength in her friendships with Leah and James, whose unwavering support became a lifeline amid the storm. Leah's fiery spirit and fierce loyalty pushed Rachel beyond her comfort zones, encouraging her to embrace the fullness of campus life and her own potential. Leah reminded her that life was more than just surviving. It was about thriving, about finding joy and purpose even in the darkest moments. James's calm steadiness offered Rachel a safe harbor, a place where she could be vulnerable without fear of judgment. Together, they helped Rachel navigate the complexities of her identity and the burdens she carried. The turning point came the day Rachel collapsed from exhaustion during a grueling semester. It was James who was there, catching her as she fell, both physically and emotionally. That moment led Rachel to seek therapy, confronting the shadows of her past and beginning the slow, painful process of healing. Through counseling, she learned to channel her pain into her writing, transforming personal struggles into powerful narratives that resonated with others. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, earned accolades but also exposed her to unexpected betrayal when a classmate leaked private parts of her work. The hurt cut deep, but the steadfast support of Leah and James helped Rachel reclaim her voice. The offer of a prestigious internship in London was a crossroads, a tempting escape from unresolved family tensions and personal fears. Yet, a visit to her brother Kyle in prison reaffirmed Rachel's commitment to face her past head-on. Kyle's remorse and hope for redemption inspired Rachel to embrace authenticity and courage, themes she wove into her commencement speech. Standing before the sea of faces on graduation day, Rachel's voice was clear and unwavering. She shared her story not just as a tale of success, but as a journey marked by resilience, vulnerability, and hope. Her words struck a chord, earning standing ovations and sparking conversations across the nation. The speech became a beacon for countless others grappling with their own challenges, reminding them that truth and love could light the way through adversity. Returning home, Rachel took tentative steps toward healing fractured family relationships. Her father's hesitant letter of pride was a fragile but meaningful bridge. With Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting first-generation students, fostering a community of empowerment and belonging. Years later, as a distinguished guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel reflected on her path, from uncertainty and fear to strength and purpose. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," resonated deeply, embodying the lessons of a life transformed by courage, authenticity, and connection. Rachel's story, once a quiet struggle, had blossomed into a source of hope and inspiration for many, proving that even in the face of hardship, the human spirit can prevail. Rachel sat alone in the quiet of her dorm room, the evening light casting long shadows across her desk cluttered with notebooks and half-finished drafts. The magnitude of what lay ahead, the final speech she was to deliver at Harvard's commencement, pressed on her heart with a weight both exhilarating and terrifying. It wasn't just the honor of speaking before an audience of thousands, it was the chance to share her story, to give voice to the struggles and triumphs that had defined her journey. She had wrestled for years with how to capture the complexity of her experience, the pain of family fractures, the relentless pressure to succeed, the moments of despair and hope, and now the moment was almost here. From the very beginning, Rachel had been no stranger to hardship. Growing up in a small town in Oklahoma, she'd watched her family struggle through financial instability and emotional turmoil. Her father's silence had been a wall she often found herself hitting, while her mother's quiet resilience was a beacon. Her brother Kyle's mistakes had cast a long shadow, leading to years of separation and worry. These memories, painful yet formative, had fueled her determination to break the cycle and forge a different path. Harvard was more than a dream realized, it was a promise to herself and her family. College life had challenged Rachel in ways she hadn't anticipated. The academic rigor was daunting, but it was the emotional landscape that proved most difficult to navigate. The feeling of being an outsider, the weight of expectation, and the loneliness of being far from home tested her resolve. Yet, it was through these trials that Rachel discovered the power of connection. Leah's friendship was a lifeline, a force of joy, laughter, and unwavering support. Leah challenged Rachel to embrace her full self, to stand tall in her truth. James, with his quiet steadiness, offered a different kind of strength, a reminder that vulnerability could coexist with courage. The turning point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, overwhelmed by stress and exhaustion, Rachel collapsed in the library. The incident forced her to confront her limits and seek help. Therapy opened a door to healing, allowing her to unpack the weight she'd carried alone for so long. Through writing, she found a voice that was both raw and compelling. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, won acclaim for its honesty and depth, shining a light on the complexities of identity and resilience. But with recognition came vulnerability. When a classmate leaked parts of her private work, Rachel faced judgment and betrayal. The pain was sharp, but Leah and James stood unwaveringly by her side, their loyalty a shield. An opportunity to intern in London offered a tempting escape from the turmoil at home and on campus. Yet, Rachel's heart remained tethered to her family, especially after a visit to Kyle in prison. Seeing his remorse and hope reaffirmed her commitment to honesty and reconciliation. Kyle's encouragement to be brave and authentic became the foundation of her commencement speech. On the day of the ceremony, Rachel stepped onto the stage with a steadiness born of hard-won confidence. She spoke not just of academic achievement, but of the journey, the setbacks, the moments of doubt, the resilience that carried her through. Her words resonated deeply, moving the audience to tears and applause. The speech quickly gained national attention, inspiring countless others. Returning home, Rachel faced the delicate process of mending family bonds. Her father's tentative letter of pride was a small but significant step toward healing. With Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit to support first-generation students, creating a community where stories like hers could inspire and empower. Years later, as a guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel reflected on her journey. Her closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," captured the essence of a life transformed by resilience, truth, and connection. Rachel's story, once marked by struggle and fear, had blossomed into a beacon of hope, illuminating the power of authenticity and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Rachel felt the familiar flutter of nerves as she prepared for the next chapter in her journey, delivering her speech at Harvard's prestigious commencement. The weight of this moment was immense, not only because she was speaking to thousands of people, but because her speech would reveal her truth, the vulnerable, messy story behind the polished veneer of achievement. The journey had been long and complicated, marked by the shadow of her family's struggles in Oklahoma, the fierce demands of Harvard academics, and her own battles with self-doubt and exhaustion. Yet, it was also a story of hope, friendship, and the courage to embrace one's authentic self. Throughout her college years, Rachel had been shaped profoundly by two people, Leah and James. Leah, with her unyielding confidence and fiery passion, had become Rachel's guiding light, encouraging her to confront her fears and embrace her identity. Leah's words often echoed in Rachel's mind, "You're not just surviving, you're meant to shine." James, quiet but steadfast, was a constant source of calm and support. Their friendship was a lifeline during moments when Rachel felt overwhelmed or isolated. The turning point in Rachel's story came abruptly when she collapsed from exhaustion. That moment of physical and emotional breaking forced her to seek therapy, a decision that opened doors to healing and self-discovery. Through therapy, Rachel learned to channel her pain into her writing, creating powerful essays that captured the complexities of identity, resilience, and belonging. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, earned accolades but also exposed her to betrayal when a classmate leaked private parts of her work, leading to judgment and gossip. The loyalty of Leah and James, however, remained unwavering, helping Rachel reclaim her voice and strength. When James offered her a chance to intern in London, Rachel was tempted by the possibility of escape and a fresh start. Yet, a visit to her brother Kyle in prison shifted her perspective. Kyle's remorse and hope for redemption rekindled Rachel's commitment to face her past honestly. His encouragement to speak her truth courageously became the foundation of her commencement address. On graduation day, standing before a sea of expectant faces, Rachel's voice rang clear and confident. She shared not only her academic achievements but also the struggles, fears, and resilience that had shaped her. The audience was captivated, moved to tears and applause. Her speech resonated far beyond Harvard, inspiring many others to embrace their own truths and challenges. Returning home, Rachel took tentative steps to heal her fractured family relationships. Her father's tentative letter expressing pride was a fragile but meaningful milestone. Together with Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit organization to support first-generation students, creating a community where stories like hers could inspire hope and empowerment. Years later, as a distinguished guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel reflected on the lessons of resilience, love, and authenticity that had guided her path. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed through the auditorium, a beacon of hope for all who listened. Rachel's story, once marked by struggle and fear, had blossomed into a powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of truth. Rachel's senior spring at Harvard arrived with a whirlwind of emotions: excitement, anxiety, anticipation, and a deep, quiet determination. She had come so far from the unsure girl who had stepped onto campus 4 years earlier, unsure if she truly belonged among the ivy-covered halls and the brilliant minds. Yet here she was, preparing to deliver the commencement speech, a culmination of years of struggle, growth, and transformation. The weight of her story rested on her shoulders, a story not just of academic success, but of overcoming pain, embracing identity, and finding strength in love and community. The path had been far from smooth. Rachel's early days were marked by loneliness and the daunting pressure of being a first-generation student from a fractured family in Oklahoma. Her father's silence and her mother's quiet endurance had shaped much of her childhood, while her brother Kyle's troubles cast a long, painful shadow. These realities fueled her drive but also brought deep wounds. College exposed her to worlds she had never imagined, both inspiring and intimidating. The relentless academic demands often left her exhausted and overwhelmed, culminating in a collapse that forced her to seek help and start therapy. Therapy became a sanctuary, a place where Rachel learned to untangle the complex emotions that had held her captive. Writing transformed from a private refuge into a powerful voice that could connect, heal, and inspire. Her essay, "Between Two Worlds," captured the nuanced experience of navigating multiple identities and resonated deeply within the Harvard community. But the triumph was tempered when a classmate leaked private parts of her essay, exposing her to judgment and betrayal. The pain was raw, yet the unwavering support from Leah and James helped Rachel reclaim her strength and continue her journey. Leah, with her fearless heart and steadfast friendship, encouraged Rachel to embrace her full self and seize every opportunity. James, calm and dependable, offered a quiet refuge in the chaos. Their presence reminded Rachel that she was never truly alone. When James offered her an internship in London, Rachel faced a difficult choice: escape or confront. A visit to Kyle in prison crystallized her decision to stay, face her past, and speak her truth with courage. Graduation day was a moment of profound vulnerability and triumph. Standing on the stage, Rachel shared her story, the struggles, the hopes, the resilience that had brought her here. Her words moved the audience, sparking tears, applause, and a wave of inspiration that spread beyond Harvard's walls. The speech went viral, resonating with countless others facing their own battles. Back home, Rachel worked to mend broken family ties. Her father's tentative letter of pride marked the first step toward healing. With Leah and James, she founded a nonprofit to support first-generation students, creating a community of empowerment and belonging. Years later, invited back to Harvard as a guest speaker, Rachel reflected on her journey. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed as a beacon of hope and resilience. Rachel's story had become a testament to the transformative power of truth, love, and the human spirit's capacity to overcome even the deepest challenges. Rachel sat in the quiet corner of a bustling coffee shop near Harvard Square, her notebook open but untouched as she stared out the window, watching students hurry by, their faces full of anticipation for the future. The commencement ceremony was just days away, and the speech she had been crafting for months still felt incomplete, not in content, but in spirit. She needed to find the heart of her story, the raw, authentic truth that would resonate with thousands. It was more than an address, it was a chance to give voice to the invisible battles many faced, including her own. Her mind drifted back to the early days at Harvard, the overwhelming rush of new faces, the pressure to excel, the loneliness of being so far from the small Oklahoma town that had been her whole world. The memories were bittersweet. Her father's silence during family dinners, her mother's quiet sacrifices, and the heartbreak of her brother Kyle's imprisonment all lingered like shadows. But those hardships had forged her resilience, had taught her the value of perseverance and hope. Leah had been a beacon through those years. With her fearless spirit and unwavering belief in Rachel, she challenged her to break free from self-doubt and embrace her full potential. "You're meant to shine," Leah often reminded her, words that echoed in Rachel's mind even on the darkest days. James, steady and compassionate, had become a safe harbor. His quiet support helped Rachel face her vulnerabilities without fear, teaching her that strength often lay in openness. The night Rachel collapsed from exhaustion was a turning point. It was James who found her, cradled her until help arrived, and urged her to seek therapy. That step opened a door to healing Rachel hadn't known existed. Through therapy, she learned to navigate her emotions, to confront the pain she had long buried. Writing became her sanctuary, a way to transform struggle into strength. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, captured the complex dance of identity and belonging, earning praise but also exposing her to betrayal when a classmate leaked parts of her work. The breach of trust was painful, yet Leah and James stood resolute, their loyalty a shield against despair. An internship offer in London tempted Rachel with the promise of a fresh start, but a visit to Kyle in prison grounded her. His remorse and hope for redemption rekindled Rachel's courage to face her past honestly. Kyle's words, "Speak your truth, no matter the fear," became the cornerstone of her speech. On graduation day, standing before the sea of expectant faces in Sanders Theater, Rachel's voice was steady and clear. She shared not just her achievements but her journey, the fears, the setbacks, the moments of hope. Her speech moved the audience, sparking tears and applause that rippled beyond Harvard. The message resonated widely, inspiring countless others to embrace their own stories with courage. Returning home, Rachel began healing fractured family bonds. Her father's tentative letter expressing pride marked a fragile but meaningful step toward reconciliation. Together with Leah and James, Rachel founded a nonprofit supporting first-generation students, fostering a community of empowerment and hope. Years later, as a guest speaker at Harvard, Rachel reflected on the path that had brought her here. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed as a beacon of resilience and authenticity. Rachel's story had transformed from one of struggle and fear into a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of truth and love. Rachel's voice echoed softly through the vast Sanders Theater as she began her commencement speech, the weight of the moment pressing on her chest but also fueling a fire within. The sea of faces before her, the proud families, the beaming faculty, and her fellow graduates, blurred slightly, as if her words created a bubble of focus and vulnerability around her. She began with the question that had haunted her throughout her journey. What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The room fell silent, the question hanging in the air like a challenge and an invitation. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She added, weaving a modern, personal touch to connect beyond the physical space. Rachel's story unfolded, starting in the dusty fields of rural Oklahoma where her family struggled under the weight of silence and hardship. She spoke of her father's stoic presence, her mother's quiet sacrifices, and the heartbreak of her brother Kyle's incarceration, a past riddled with secrets and pain that threatened to define her. But Rachel's voice was steady as she shared how Harvard had become a crucible for transformation, where academic challenges tested her mind and emotional battles forged her spirit. She told of Leah, whose fiery determination and relentless belief in Rachel had shattered walls of doubt. Leah's friendship was a lifeline, a call to bravery in the face of uncertainty. James, calm and steadfast, was the anchor that held her when storms raged. Their support was the unexpected gift that made resilience possible. Rachel recounted the collapse that forced her to confront exhaustion and mental health, the therapy that taught her to embrace vulnerability as strength, and the essay that became a beacon for many first-generation students but also a source of betrayal when it was leaked. The pain was sharp, but the hope and love she found in her friends fueled her journey forward. Her narrative shifted as she described the turning point, a visit to Kyle in prison that rekindled her courage to face her past honestly. She chose to stay and confront rather than escape, a choice that shaped the heart of her speech: authenticity, resilience, and the power of love to heal. As Rachel's voice grew stronger, the audience was drawn into the emotional climax of her story, her speech itself. The raw honesty, the lessons learned, and the hopeful future she envisioned created a wave of empathy and inspiration. Applause erupted, filling the theater with a standing ovation that seemed to lift Rachel higher than the stage ever could. The days after graduation were a whirlwind of calls, messages, and media attention. Rachel's speech resonated far beyond Harvard, touching lives across the country. She returned home with a new purpose: to heal fractured family bonds, starting with her father's hesitant but heartfelt letter of pride. With Leah and James, she founded a nonprofit dedicated to supporting first-generation students, transforming her pain into a mission of hope and empowerment. Years later, invited back as a distinguished guest speaker, Rachel reflected on the journey that had begun with uncertainty and fear but blossomed into a story of triumph. Her closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed through the auditorium, a lasting reminder that even in the face of hardship, the human spirit's capacity for resilience and love can illuminate the darkest paths. Rachel's story was no longer just her own, it was a beacon for all who dared to dream, struggle, and ultimately, rise. Rachel sat backstage at Sanders Theater, the heavy velvet curtains a dark contrast to the bright, expectant crowd filling the seats beyond. The hum of whispered conversations and the rustling of programs drifted through the air, a symphony of anticipation. This was the moment she had dreamed of and dreaded in equal measure, the Harvard commencement speech. The culmination of years of struggle, growth, and raw honesty. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded her notes, but beneath the nerves lay a fierce resolve. She was ready to share her truth. The speech began with a question she knew would strike a chord: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The silence that followed was thick with reflection. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She added, a subtle nod to the generation that had shaped her worldview. It was a moment of connection, bridging the gap between speaker and listener. Rachel's voice grew steady as she painted a vivid picture of her childhood in rural Oklahoma, fields stretching wide beneath a relentless sun, a family bound by love and burdened by silence. Her father's stoic presence, her mother's sacrifices, and the shadow cast by her brother Kyle's incarceration all wove into a tapestry of hardship and hope. Harvard, she explained, was more than an academic challenge. It was a crucible that tested her spirit and reshaped her identity. She spoke candidly about the friends who had become her chosen family: Leah, whose fiery passion ignited Rachel's courage, and James, whose quiet strength offered unwavering support. Their friendship was the lifeline that carried her through moments of despair and exhaustion. Rachel recounted the day she collapsed from stress, the subsequent therapy that helped her confront her fears, and the power of her writing to transform pain into purpose. Yet, the journey wasn't without betrayal. A classmate's leak of her private essay exposed her vulnerability to judgment and gossip. But in that darkness, the light of friendship and self-belief burned brighter. The story turned as Rachel described a pivotal visit to Kyle in prison, a moment that crystallized her resolve to face her past and embrace authenticity. His hope for redemption became a catalyst for her own courage. Choosing to stay at Harvard rather than escape to a London internship, she grounded herself in truth and purpose. Her speech's emotional crescendo revealed the lessons she had learned: resilience is born from vulnerability, and love is the compass guiding us through life's storms. The audience was captivated, their applause swelling into a standing ovation that echoed long after Rachel left the stage. In the weeks that followed, Rachel's words resonated far beyond Harvard. Media interviews, letters from strangers, and heartfelt messages poured in. Returning home, she worked to heal fractured family bonds, starting with her father's tentative letter expressing pride. Together with Leah and James, she founded a non-profit to support first-generation students, creating a community where stories like hers could inspire and empower. Years later, invited back as a distinguished guest speaker, Rachel reflected on her journey. Her closing message, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," remained a beacon of hope. Rachel's story had evolved from one of struggle into a testament to the transformative power of resilience, authenticity, and the enduring strength of human connection. Rachel stood just behind the curtain, her heart pounding like a drum echoing through the cavernous Sanders Theater. The faces waiting to hear her words, friends, family, professors, fellow graduates, were filled with expectation. The bright lights and the vastness of the stage might have been intimidating for anyone, but for Rachel, this was more than just a speech. It was a culmination of years filled with pain, hope, setbacks, and triumphs, and above all, it was a chance to speak a truth that few dared to voice aloud. As she took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight, she recalled the opening line she had rehearsed so many times: "What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side?" The room fell silent, hanging on every word. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She added, a modern touch to engage her generation, bridging the gap between the grand stage and personal connection. Rachel's voice carried through the auditorium as she recounted her journey from a small, struggling family in Oklahoma to the prestigious halls of Harvard. She described the heavy silence that filled her childhood home, the unspoken worries, her father's quiet demeanor, and her mother's tireless work to keep the family afloat. She spoke of her brother Kyle, whose mistakes led him down a dark path and left a painful void in her life. Yet, she didn't dwell on despair. Instead, she framed these experiences as the forge in which her resilience was tempered. She shared how her friendships with Leah and James became lifelines. Leah's fiery confidence and unshakable belief in Rachel inspired her to break free from self-doubt. James's steady presence offered comfort and strength during the darkest moments. Rachel spoke candidly about the toll Harvard's pressures took on her, how exhaustion overwhelmed her to the point of collapse, forcing her to confront her mental health and seek therapy. Writing became her refuge and her weapon, a way to process and transform pain. Her essay, Between Two Worlds, brought her both acclaim and betrayal when a classmate leaked private parts, exposing her vulnerability. But in that crisis, Rachel found hope through unwavering support and inner strength. The story deepened as Rachel described a visit to Kyle in prison, a moment of reckoning and renewed hope. His remorse and encouragement to embrace authenticity became the foundation for her speech. Rather than running away to London for an internship, Rachel chose to stay, face her past, and speak her truth. Her words swelled with emotion as she reached the speech's climax, the message of resilience born from vulnerability, and love as the guiding light through life's storms. The audience was spellbound, tears glistening in many eyes. When Rachel finished, applause erupted into a standing ovation that seemed to shake the very walls. The days that followed brought media attention and messages from strangers whose own stories mirrored her struggles. Returning home, Rachel began the slow, painful work of rebuilding family ties, starting with her father's hesitant but heartfelt letter of pride. Alongside Leah and James, she founded a non-profit to support first-generation students, turning her pain into a mission of hope and empowerment. Years later, standing once more on Harvard's stage as a guest speaker, Rachel reflected on her journey. Her final words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," resonated with the same power they held on that first day, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of truth and love. Rachel's story had become a beacon for all who dared to face their fears and rise above adversity. Rachel's speech at Harvard had become more than just an academic milestone, it had turned into a movement. The ripple effects of her heartfelt words extended far beyond the walls of Sanders Theater, reaching into communities across the country where young people grappled with the weight of their own hidden struggles. The viral video of her speech sparked conversations on social media, inspired countless personal stories, and prompted university leaders to rethink how they supported first-generation students. But for Rachel, the real journey was just beginning. Returning to her hometown in Oklahoma after graduation felt like stepping into a world both familiar and changed. The small town that once seemed suffocating now held new meaning, layers of history, family, and a community waiting for healing. Her father's tentative letter expressing pride, though brief and awkward, was a monumental first step toward reconciliation. Her mother's quiet smile and warm embrace as Rachel stepped through the door spoke volumes about unconditional love. Rachel knew the path ahead would be difficult. Old wounds don't heal overnight, and trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. She spent long evenings talking with her family, sharing parts of her journey, and listening to theirs. It was in these moments of vulnerability that Rachel realized how deeply intertwined love and pain were, and how important it was to keep moving forward, even when the past threatened to pull her back. Together with Leah and James, Rachel launched a nonprofit organization aimed at supporting first-generation college students. They called it New Horizons, a name reflecting the endless possibilities that education could unlock. The nonprofit provided mentorship programs, scholarships, and mental health resources, creating a community where students could find not only academic guidance but also emotional support. Rachel poured her heart into this work, channeling her experiences into creating a space where others could thrive. The first year of New Horizons was filled with challenges. Funding was tight, and the demands of managing the organization while launching her own career stretched Rachel thin. Yet, every success, every student helped, every story shared, reinforced her commitment. She often thought back to her own days of isolation and despair and vowed to make sure no one else felt as alone as she had. As the nonprofit grew, Rachel found herself invited to speak at conferences, schools, and community centers. Each speech was an opportunity to share her story, to remind others that their struggles didn't define them, but their resilience did. She met young people whose eyes lit up with hope, whose hands trembled with the courage to keep fighting. These moments were both humbling and invigorating, fueling Rachel's belief in the transformative power of love and support. Years passed, and Rachel's life blossomed in ways she had never imagined. She pursued graduate studies in social work, deepening her understanding of the systemic challenges facing students like her. Her relationship with Leah and James evolved, their friendship a constant source of joy and stability. Rachel's family continued to heal, with old hurts acknowledged and new memories forged. The culmination of Rachel's journey came when she was invited back to Harvard, not as a student, but as a distinguished guest speaker. Standing once again on the stage where her life had changed forever, Rachel felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. She looked out at the faces before her, eager, hopeful, and ready to take on the world, and shared her closing message: life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. The words resonated deeply, a beacon of hope in a world that often felt uncertain. Rachel's story had come full circle, from a young woman lost and afraid, to a powerful voice for change and compassion. Her journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the strength found in vulnerability, and the enduring power of love. It was a story she hoped would inspire others to embrace their truth, face their challenges, and keep moving forward, no matter what. Rachel's journey after the Harvard speech was a complex tapestry woven with threads of triumph, vulnerability, and relentless determination. The viral impact of her words had brought her unexpected attention, and with it, new opportunities and fresh challenges. She found herself navigating a world where her personal story had become public, her pain and hope magnified for all to see. Despite the acclaim, Rachel remained grounded, focusing on what mattered most, helping others walk a path from struggle to strength. Back in her hometown, Rachel worked tirelessly with New Horizons. The nonprofit had blossomed beyond its modest beginnings, now offering comprehensive programs that reached students not only across Oklahoma but nationwide. Rachel understood intimately the isolation many first-generation students felt, the sense of being caught between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. She dedicated herself to creating spaces where these students could find community, mentorship, and the tools to succeed. Rachel's personal healing journey intertwined deeply with her professional mission. She spent hours counseling students wrestling with mental health challenges, poverty, and family conflicts, issues she had confronted herself. Each story she heard was a mirror reflecting her own past, and every breakthrough was a reaffirmation of the power of connection and understanding. Meanwhile, her family continued their slow, tentative healing. Her father's guarded pride transformed into open support, and conversations that once felt impossible became moments of shared vulnerability. Rachel's mother, who had always been a quiet pillar, blossomed into an active advocate for new horizons, her hands busy with organizing events and reaching out to other families. Kyle's presence remained a complex thread in the family fabric. His efforts toward redemption and rebuilding relationships offered hope, though the scars of the past lingered. Rachel's relationship with Leah and James deepened, their bond a source of stability amidst the whirlwind of change. Leah's relentless drive fueled the nonprofit's growth, while James's calm wisdom balanced the chaos. Together, they formed a trio committed not only to their own futures but to lifting others along the way. Despite her packed schedule, Rachel carved out time for personal reflection and growth. She pursued a master's degree in social work, fascinated by the systemic barriers that shaped so many lives like hers. The academic challenge was intense, but Rachel approached it with the same resilience that had carried her through her undergraduate years. Her thesis explored the intersection of mental health and educational attainment among first-generation students, a subject close to her heart. Rachel also found herself mentoring younger students at Harvard, returning each year to offer guidance and inspiration. Standing on the stage where her own story had been heard, she saw reflections of herself in the nervous freshmen and struggling sophomores. Sharing her experiences, she encouraged them to embrace their full selves, to find strength in vulnerability, and to seek out the support they deserved. One crisp autumn day, Rachel received an invitation that marked a milestone in her journey. Harvard was honoring her with an alumni award for her contributions to education and mental health advocacy. The ceremony was a grand affair, filled with speeches and celebrations, but for Rachel, the real honor was the recognition that her work mattered, that her voice had helped change lives. At the ceremony, Rachel delivered a speech that echoed the themes that had carried her from her Oklahoma roots to this moment of acclaim. She spoke of resilience, community, and the transformative power of love. Her closing line, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," brought the audience to their feet once more. The recognition opened new doors. Rachel was invited to collaborate with educational institutions, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations to develop policies and programs that better supported first-generation and underserved students. Her influence extended into the realms of public policy and advocacy, amplifying the message that success was not just about individual grit but about creating environments where all students could thrive. Yet, Rachel never lost sight of her personal roots. She returned frequently to Oklahoma, ensuring New Horizons remained connected to the communities it served. These visits grounded her, reminding her of the small-town girl who once feared she had no future beyond those dusty fields. Now, she was a beacon of hope for many, proof that courage, love, and perseverance could rewrite even the hardest stories. Rachel's story continued to evolve, a living testament to the human spirit's capacity for growth and transformation. From the shadows of silence and hardship, she had emerged as a voice of hope and change, someone who showed that even when life seemed to strip everything away, there was always a way forward, guided by love and the unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. Rachel's life after the award ceremony was marked by a deepening sense of purpose and a relentless drive to expand her impact. The recognition had brought new opportunities but also fresh pressures, expectations to speak, to lead, to always be strong. Yet Rachel understood that true strength came not from perfection but from embracing vulnerability and authenticity. She made it her mission to live that truth, both publicly and privately. Her nonprofit, New Horizons, was flourishing but also evolving. Rachel and her team began developing innovative programs tailored to the unique challenges faced by first-generation students, peer mentorship networks, mental health workshops, career readiness training, and family engagement initiatives. They partnered with schools and universities nationwide, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond their Oklahoma roots. Rachel often found herself traveling, speaking at conferences, meeting with educators and policymakers, and sharing stories that connected heart to heart. But even as her professional life blossomed, Rachel was mindful to nurture her personal growth and relationships. She prioritized time with Leah and James, their friendship a steady anchor through the tides of change. Together, they navigated the complexities of adulthood, careers, family dynamics, and dreams yet to be realized. Leah's fiery spirit remained a source of inspiration, while James's calm wisdom helped Rachel find balance in moments of overwhelm. Rachel's family life continued its slow, sometimes messy healing process. Conversations with her father, once guarded and sparse, grew more open and filled with pride. Her mother's quiet strength remained a foundation, their bond deepening with shared purpose. Kyle, though still navigating his own path, showed signs of transformation that brought cautious hope. Rachel understood that healing was ongoing, a journey without a fixed destination. As Rachel pursued her graduate studies, she delved deeper into research on educational equity and mental health. Her thesis became a groundbreaking study highlighting the systemic barriers first-generation students faced and the critical role of community support in their success. The academic rigor challenged her, but also fueled her determination to translate knowledge into action. Throughout this period, Rachel remained committed to mentoring students at Harvard and beyond. Her annual visits to the campus were a cherished tradition, opportunities to remind new generations that their struggles did not define them. She spoke candidly about failure, resilience, and the power of embracing one's full story. Students often approached her afterward, sharing their own journeys and expressing gratitude for her honesty and encouragement. One day, while preparing for a keynote address at a national education summit, Rachel received an unexpected invitation from a prominent philanthropic foundation. They wanted to fund a multi-year initiative led by New Horizons, focusing on expanding mental health resources for underserved student populations. The grant was transformative, allowing Rachel and her team to hire more staff, launch new programs, and deepen their impact. The success brought new challenges. Managing growth required Rachel to develop leadership skills she had never needed before, delegating, strategic planning, navigating complex organizational dynamics. She learned to lean on her colleagues, trusting their expertise while staying true to the mission that ignited her passion. Despite the demands, Rachel carved out time for reflection and self-care. She took up journaling again, a practice she had abandoned during her busiest years. Writing helped her process the whirlwind of emotions, celebrate victories, and confront doubts. Meditation and long walks in nature became daily rituals, grounding her in the present and reminding her of the simple beauty that life held. Rachel's journey also included moments of unexpected joy. She fell in love, gently, slowly, with someone who saw her not just as a public figure but as a whole person with hopes, fears, and dreams. Their relationship blossomed in quiet moments, shared laughter over coffee, late-night conversations, walks through autumn leaves. Love, once a source of pain and confusion, had become a steady flame lighting her way. Years later, standing once again on Harvard's stage as a keynote speaker for the university's Social Impact Conference, Rachel felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey from that uncertain girl in rural Oklahoma to a woman shaping national conversations on education and mental health was more than she had dared to imagine. She looked out at the sea of faces, students, educators, advocates, and shared her truth: resilience is not a solitary act but a collective journey, healing comes through connection, and love, in all its forms, is the greatest force we have. Her closing words, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way," echoed with new depth and meaning. Rachel's story had become a living testament to the power of hope, authenticity, and courage. It was a story that would continue to inspire, reminding all who heard it that no matter the obstacles, the human spirit could rise, transform, and shine. Rachel's keynote at Harvard marked a milestone, but it was far from the end of her journey. The months that followed were filled with both exhilaration and introspection, as she balanced public acclaim with private challenges. The spotlight brought new invitations, to speak at conferences, consult with educational boards, participate in panels, but Rachel remained grounded, careful to keep her mission centered on impact rather than celebrity. Her nonprofit, New Horizons, was entering a new phase of expansion. The generous grant they had received enabled them to pilot mental health programs in dozens of high schools across the country, integrating counseling, peer support groups, and family workshops. Rachel worked closely with educators, counselors, and students to ensure the programs were culturally sensitive and effective. Each success story reaffirmed the importance of addressing the whole student, not just academic achievement. Rachel's leadership evolved as she learned to balance vision with practical management. She embraced the challenge of building a sustainable organization, mentoring her team to carry forward the work with passion and professionalism. Leah and James, now deeply embedded in the nonprofit's operations, became trusted partners and friends in this endeavor. Amid this growth, Rachel's personal life flourished quietly but meaningfully. Her relationship, built on mutual respect and understanding, provided a sanctuary from the demands of her public role. Together, they navigated life's complexities, career ambitions, family dynamics, moments of doubt, always returning to a shared foundation of love and support. Rachel continued her graduate studies, now focusing on policy and advocacy. She believed that real change required not only grassroots efforts but also systemic reform. Her research and writing influenced conversations in educational policy circles, and she found herself invited to testify before state education committees. Her voice carried the weight of lived experience and informed expertise, a powerful combination that commanded attention. Despite the pressures, Rachel prioritized self-care and reflection. She maintained her journaling habit and found solace in nature, often retreating to a cabin by a quiet lake to recharge. These moments of solitude were essential, allowing her to process emotions and reconnect with her purpose. Rachel's family remained central to her life's narrative. She and her father shared a relationship marked by honest communication and mutual respect, a far cry from the silence of her youth. Her mother's involvement in New Horizons deepened, as she took on a mentorship role for parents of first-generation students, bridging generational gaps with empathy. Kyle's journey toward redemption was ongoing, and Rachel remained hopeful, supporting his efforts while acknowledging the complexities of healing. One afternoon, Rachel received an unexpected email from a young woman named Maya, a first-generation college student from a small town in Texas. Maya wrote about how Rachel's speech had inspired her to apply to college despite financial and family obstacles. She shared her fears and dreams, asking for advice. Rachel replied with warmth and encouragement, beginning a mentorship that blossomed over the months into a meaningful friendship. Maya's progress and resilience became a testament to the impact of connection and hope. As Rachel reflected on her journey, she recognized that the core of her story was not about success or recognition, but about the power of authenticity and love to transform lives. Her speech had been a spark, but the flame was kept alive by the countless relationships, challenges, and moments of grace that defined her path. Years later, Rachel's story would be shared in classrooms, community centers, and boardrooms, a beacon for anyone facing adversity. Her journey, marked by vulnerability, courage, and unwavering commitment to others, stood as proof that no matter where you start, with love and resilience, you can create a future full of possibility. The words she once spoke on that stage continued to resonate: life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. Rachel's story, now woven into the fabric of countless lives, continued to evolve in ways both expected and surprising. After years of tireless advocacy, teaching, and leadership, she found herself standing at yet another crossroads, one that challenged her to redefine success and purpose on her own terms. The weight of responsibility was immense, yet Rachel greeted it with the same fierce determination that had carried her from her small Oklahoma town to the national stage. It was a new chapter, brimming with opportunity, reflection, and unexpected growth. The nonprofit, New Horizons, had blossomed into a nationwide movement, providing critical support to thousands of first-generation students navigating the treacherous waters of higher education. Rachel's visionary leadership had transformed it from a fledgling project into an influential institution. Yet with scale came complexity, organizational politics, funding challenges, and a constant need to innovate. Rachel learned to navigate these with grace, relying on her trusted team and honing her skills as a leader who listened deeply and acted decisively. At the same time, Rachel embraced her role as an educator and mentor with renewed passion. She took on a faculty position at a prominent university, teaching courses on educational equity, social justice, and mental health. The classroom became a place of vibrant dialogue, where Rachel challenged students to think critically about the systems shaping their lives and to envision a more inclusive future. Her own experiences enriched her teaching, grounding theory in lived reality. Her relationship with Leah and James, a cornerstone of her journey, evolved into a chosen family that celebrated successes, supported through setbacks, and embraced life's complexities with humor and honesty. Together, they navigated new milestones, career changes, personal challenges, and the joys and sorrows of life's unpredictability. Their bond, forged in the fires of shared experience, remained a source of strength and comfort. Rachel's connection to her biological family deepened in unexpected ways. Her father, once distant and reserved, had become a proud supporter of her work, speaking openly about his regrets and hopes. Her mother's quiet wisdom continued to inspire, and her involvement in New Horizons brought healing and purpose. Kyle's path to redemption was a testament to resilience, though Rachel remained cautious, aware that some wounds required time and patience to mend fully. Amid these external achievements, Rachel grappled with internal questions about identity and balance. The pressures of public life sometimes felt overwhelming, and moments of self-doubt crept in. To counterbalance, she deepened her commitment to mindfulness, therapy, and creative expression, writing, painting, and music. These outlets allowed her to process emotions and reconnect with her authentic self beyond roles and expectations. Rachel's influence extended beyond education and mental health. She became a sought-after speaker at global forums, sharing insights on intersectionality, trauma-informed care, and community empowerment. Her voice, once hesitant and uncertain, had grown into a powerful force for change, advocating for policies and practices that honored dignity, equity, and compassion. One of Rachel's proudest moments came when she helped launch a nationwide initiative integrating mental health services into K-12 schools, bridging gaps in access and stigma. The project, funded by a coalition of philanthropic partners and government agencies, reflected Rachel's lifelong belief that prevention and early intervention were key to breaking cycles of hardship. Throughout this journey, Rachel never forgot the humble origins of her story, the fear, loneliness, and hope that had propelled her forward. She maintained close ties to her hometown, supporting local programs and inspiring young people who saw in her a reflection of their own dreams. Her visits home were filled with warmth, laughter, and shared memories, a testament to the healing power of roots and reconciliation. As Rachel looked toward the future, she envisioned a legacy not defined by accolades but by lives touched and transformed. She dreamed of a world where every student, regardless of background, had the support to thrive, where mental health was prioritized alongside academics, and where love, in its many forms, was recognized as the foundation of human resilience. Her journey, marked by courage, compassion, and unwavering hope, continued to inspire all who encountered it. From the small-town girl who once feared she had no place in the world to the woman who stood as a beacon of change and possibility, Rachel's story was a testament to the enduring power of love to lead the way. Rachel's journey took an unexpected turn one crisp spring morning when she received a call that would challenge everything she had built and believed in. The voice on the other end was calm but urgent, informing her that a scandal had erupted involving New Horizons. A data breach had exposed sensitive information about students enrolled in their programs. The news spread quickly, igniting a firestorm of concern, criticism, and media scrutiny. Rachel was stunned, Her carefully nurtured nonprofit was suddenly under intense pressure, and the trust she had worked so hard to build seemed to be slipping through her fingers. The breach not only threatened the privacy of vulnerable students but also jeopardized the very mission that gave Rachel's life meaning. Immediately, Rachel sprang into action, assembling her leadership team to assess the situation. They confirmed the breach was real and severe. Personal data including mental health records, family backgrounds, and academic information had been accessed by unauthorized individuals. The implications were grave: student safety, confidentiality, and future opportunities were at risk. Rachel felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. This was more than a crisis, it was a potential catastrophe. Facing the media and public became an inevitable part of the next days. Rachel stepped forward with honesty and transparency, holding press conferences and issuing heartfelt statements that acknowledged the mistake, apologized to affected families, and outlined immediate steps for damage control and prevention. It was the hardest speech she'd ever given, her voice breaking at moments, the burden of letting down those who trusted her nearly unbearable. Yet her courage in owning the problem inspired many to stand by New Horizons, believing in its mission even amidst the chaos. Behind the scenes, Rachel's team worked tirelessly with cybersecurity experts and legal advisors to contain the breach, notify affected individuals, and enhance protections. Rachel personally reached out to students and families, listening to their fears and frustrations. Some were devastated, feeling violated and exposed, others expressed hope that this crisis could lead to stronger safeguards for all. Rachel's empathy and presence became a lifeline, reminding everyone that the organization still cared deeply and was committed to making things right. The scandal forced Rachel to confront her own vulnerabilities. She grappled with guilt and self-doubt, questioning her leadership and decisions. The late nights of crisis management were exhausting, yet she refused to let despair take hold. Leaning on Leah, James, and her partner, Rachel found strength in their unwavering support. She also sought therapy, recognizing that even the strongest leaders needed help navigating trauma and stress. As weeks turned into months, New Horizons gradually regained footing. The breach prompted systemic changes. The nonprofit implemented state-of-the-art security measures, revised policies, and increased transparency with stakeholders. Rachel championed a culture of continuous learning and accountability, turning the crisis into a catalyst for growth. The experience reshaped the organization's approach, making it more resilient and responsive to the complex realities of the communities it served. The incident also deepened Rachel's understanding of the delicate balance between trust and risk inherent in serving vulnerable populations. It reinforced her commitment to centering students' voices in decision-making and fostering environments where privacy and dignity were paramount. Rachel began advocating nationally for stronger data protection laws for nonprofits working with at-risk youth, using her experience as a powerful example of the stakes involved. Despite the turmoil, Rachel found moments of profound insight. The crisis illuminated the importance of humility and the courage to admit imperfection. It reminded her that leadership was not about never falling but about how one rises after the fall. Her journey through the scandal became a testament to resilience, transparency, and the enduring power of love and commitment to healing even the deepest wounds. In the aftermath, Rachel spoke openly about the experience in speeches and writings, framing it not as a defeat but as a transformative chapter. She shared lessons about accountability, the importance of safeguarding trust, and the need for compassion in leadership. Her story resonated deeply, inspiring others facing their own challenges to persevere with integrity and heart. Through the storm, Rachel emerged more grounded and wise. New Horizons continued to grow, stronger and more secure, carrying forward its mission with renewed purpose. Rachel's personal and professional growth intertwined, her scars becoming sources of strength and empathy. The journey reminded her, and all who followed her story, that even in the face of adversity, love and hope remain the guiding light, leading the way to new beginnings and brighter futures. Rachel stood at the threshold of a new chapter in her life, having weathered the storm of the data breach and emerging stronger on the other side. The scars left by that ordeal were still fresh, but they fueled a deeper commitment to her work and a broader vision for change. No longer was New Horizons just a non-profit, it had become a movement, a beacon for those who believed in the power of education, mental health, and community to transform lives. But Rachel knew the journey was far from over, and new challenges awaited her in places she never expected. One morning, as Rachel prepared for a panel discussion on educational equity in Washington, D.C., she received an invitation that caught her off guard, an offer to serve as an advisor to a newly formed government task force dedicated to reforming the national mental health system. The task force was composed of policymakers, health professionals, educators, and advocates tasked with creating comprehensive recommendations to improve access, reduce stigma, and integrate mental health services into schools and communities across the country. Rachel saw this as an extraordinary opportunity to influence change on a systemic level, to bring the voices of marginalized students and families into the corridors of power. She accepted the invitation with enthusiasm but also with a realistic understanding of the complexities involved. Government bureaucracy, political agendas, and competing interests could easily dilute the urgency and humanity of the issues she cared about deeply. As she stepped into her new role, Rachel found herself navigating unfamiliar terrain, policy debates, legislative jargon, and the delicate art of coalition building. Meetings were long and sometimes frustrating, with progress measured in incremental gains rather than sweeping victories. Yet Rachel's persistence and authenticity quickly earned her respect among colleagues. She was often called upon to share stories from the front lines, grounding abstract discussions in real-world impact. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?